Hey guys, tonight we're going to time travel to a place where laundry wasn't just a chore. It was a rare and questionable luxury. Imagine waking up in a small wooden cottage with the scent of hay, smoke, and something you'd rather not identify hanging in the air. You stretch, yawn, and reach for a fresh shirt, only to realize you don't have one. Not clean, not ironed, just net at all. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from and what time is it right now? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink against the soft glow of early sunlight pouring through a linen-draped window. You're not in your apartment anymore. Your bed is stuffed with straw, your floor is made of dirt, and your only shirt is hanging on a nail beside the door. It's stiff, not starched, just stiff from last week's sweat, mud, and maybe that time you wiped your hands. After butchering a fish, you eye it like it might bite you back. But you don't have a choice. Everyone wears their shirt until it can stand up on its own, and guess what? That's completely normal. You pull it over your head, it smells like KO, plus a hint of goat. In the 1300s, the average person owned maybe two shirts if they were lucky. One for daily use, the other reserved for Sundays or death. Linen was expensive. Washing was a nightmare. Most people just layered clothes and hoped for a breeze. Shirts weren't washed weekly or even monthly, sometimes not even yearly. They were aired out, beaten with sticks, or spritzed with vinegar. And when they fell apart, you stitched them again and again. What's weirder, people thought the shirt beneath your clothes, the one touching your body, was supposed to absorb the filth. That was its job. It was your medieval skin filter. Historians still debate whether people truly believed dirt protected them from illness or whether they just gave up on fighting it. But either way, a clean shirt was less hygiene and more status symbol. The cleaner your shirt, the richer you, probably wearier at least. The more servants you had to boil it for you. And if you're wondering about underwear, congratulations, you're now wearing it. That shirt is also your nightgown, your underlay, and maybe your burial wrap one day. At this point, you may be thinking, why didn't they just wash it more? Well, we'll get there. But let's just say it wasn't as simple as tossing it in a laundry basket. For now, you tie a rope around your waist to make it look like you meant to wear a wrinkled bag. Outside, the village is waking up. You spot a neighbor hauling water, wearing the exact same shirt he wore 3 market days ago. A woman walks past with soot on her hem and an actual chicken feather stuck in her sleeve. No one blinks. No one cares. You, the newcomer, are the only one uncomfortable in your clothes and in your skin. Your shirt scratches a little. You scratch back. Welcome to medieval fashion. You've just stepped into a world where style meets survival and comfort was invented. Centuries later, the truth is, clothing in this world was not disposable. Every piece was an investment. Every stain told a story. And every thread you managed to keep unbroken was a tiny triumph. You head toward the market, hoping no one notices your modern cringe. But trust me, your shirt is fine. The fishmonger's apron smells much worse. Asterisk, you step outside and the world hits you in the face. Not with sunshine or birdsong, but with smell. Not one smell, a layer cake of smells. Top note, open latrines. Middle note, damp hay and fermented cabbage. Base note, people, You take a cautious breath and instantly regret it. It's like someone took the inside of a barn, mixed it with a locker room, and then forgot it outside during a thunderstorm. But here's the twist. No one around you seems to mind. In fact, some are even whistling. Cheerfully, turns out, when everyone smells, no one does. This is not the romanticized medieval world of Pinterest boards and fantasy novels. No lavender sachets tucked into bodices, no freshly laundered tunics fluttering in the wind. This is the real Middle Ages, where scent isn't a detail. It's the atmosphere. Your own shirt, let's be honest, has joined the symphony now. It clings to your skin with that gentle, sour humidity that only days-old linen can achieve. And guess what? That's probably one of the cleaner items in town. In the market, a boy runs by, waving a dead rabbit. You can smell it before you see it. A baker fans the open door of her oven, releasing a blast of sweet, crusty bread, and, underneath that, a whiff of something like singed wool. Is that her apron, or a customer? Hard to say, but this isn't negligence. It's normal, and more importantly, it's survival in a world without daily baths, deodorant, or dry cleaning. Smell is information. It tells you who someone is, where they've been, what they've eaten, and sometimes if they're sick. Some historians even suggest that a person's unique scent might have been used for identification. Like a medieval fingerprint, you pass a group of women chatting under a tree. One of them sniffs the air and casually notes that the tanner's boy must have come home. They're not being poetic, she means it. His job stinks, literally, and his clothes tell the tale before he does. The town's priest walks by in long wool robes, and you catch a sharp, medicinal tank, something like rosemary, vinegar, or, wait, is that urine? We'll explain that later. You nod politely. He nods back, unaware or unbothered by the fact that he smells like a very spiritual compost heap. And then there's you, still trying not to gag, still flinching every time a breeze shifts direction. But slowly, something changes. You stop fighting it. You start adjusting. Your nose goes numb. This, scholars say, is the magic of olfactory fatigue. Your brain just gives up. That's why nobody in medieval towns walked around with a handkerchief permanently over their nose. They literally couldn't smell it anymore. Just like you will eventually, interestingly. Some nobles and clergy tried to fight the funk with things like pomander, tiny decorative balls filled with herbs and spices. They were the medieval version of air fresheners, dangling from belts, or tucked into sleeves. Problem is, most people couldn't afford them. And even those who could often found, they just ended up smelling like rosemary and armpit. And here's the academic kicker. Some historians argue that the medieval sense of smell wasn't worse, it was simply different. Smell had social, meaning a perfumed noble might be respected, but also suspected of vanity. A laborer reeking of honest sweat. Trusted, recognized, even welcomed, so you relax a bit. You let the town wash over you, figuratively, of course. Literally, you'd have to wait until rainfall, which might be in a few weeks. You still smell bad. Everyone does. But for the first time, you don't feel alone in it. And that, my friend, is the scent of society. Asterisk, you wake up the next morning, if you can call it that. Since the rooster started screaming before the sun even showed up, your shirt feels crisp. Not in a good way. In a, this fabric has officially bonded with my skin kind of way. You stretch, sniff, and try to remember. When was the last time this thing was washed? The answer? Maybe never. or maybe sometime during the last plague wave. Welcome to laundry. Day a concept, less every Sunday, and more whenever the filth becomes socially or physically unbearable. In medieval Europe, for most people, that meant once per season, maybe twice if you were exceptionally ambitious or had a wedding to attend. And yes, season as in spring, summer, fall, winter, not season as in pumpkin spice latte season. You look around for a laundry basket. Spoiler, there isn't one. No wicker hamper, no Tide Pods, no gentle bleach for delicates. Just a pile of fabric in the corner that might once have been white. It now looks like it's auditioning to be a map of Europe, complete with coffee. Stains where France should be. Washing clothes wasn't just rare, it was a logistical nightmare. First, you needed water, lots of it, which meant hauling it by hand from the nearest river, pond, or well. Then you needed soap, usually made from animal fat and lye, which meant boiling ashes, rendering suet, and praying you didn't accidentally blind yourself in the process. Then came the scrubbing, not in a gentle, sudsy way. You would beat the fabric with a paddle, scrub it against rough stone, or even trample it with your feet. Your shirt wasn't so much cleaned as it was aggressively punished until the dirt surrendered, naturally. All this took hours, or days, which meant laundry was not a private ritual. It was a community event done by riversides, in town washhouses, or in communal courtyards where gossip traveled faster than soap bubbles. And here's where it gets oddly specific. Medieval English law actually designated official laundry spots. These weren't just washing places, they were regulated zones. If you washed your linens too close to the town's main drinking well, you could be fined, or worse, banished from using the washstone for a whole month. Scandalous, you imagine. Hauling your shirt to the river, joining a group of women already deep into both scrubbing and scandal. That's Lady Claire's nightdress, one whispers. She's pregnant again. No, she just likes pudding, the other replies, smacking a sheet rhythmically on the rocks. You try to blend in, but your awkwardness betrays you. You accidentally fling your soaking tunic onto someone's head. They forgive you, mostly because it smells less awful wet. In fact, washing clothes too often was frowned upon. Linen wears thin, colors fade, stitching comes loose. And if you're poor, you can't afford to replace fabric every time it gets too soft. Paradoxically, overcleaning could be seen as wasteful, or even vain. Some historians argue that the seasonal schedule wasn't purely laziness. It was a calculated balance of social perception, material survival, and plain old physical capacity. Others suggest it was just the best they could manage. Because let's be honest, between farming, surviving winter, and avoiding the plague, laundry just wasn't high on the list. So there you are, shirt soaked, arms sore, eavesdropping on a story about the blacksmith's secret wife while kicking dirt out of your own underclothes. You wring your shirt out and lay it across a bush to dry. It smells like soap, grass, and still, somehow that counts as clean, right? Right. You decide, perhaps foolishly, that you'll wash your shirt again. You know, just to feel a little modern, a little human. You want water. Clear, clean, running. Water. What you get instead is a bucket of disappointment. There's no tap, no faucet, no turn and go. You've got to fetch it yourself, from the well, the stream, or maybe a rain barrel that's doubling as a mosquito resort. You lift the heavy wooden pail and start walking, already regretting every life decision that's led you here. The village well is at the center of town. It's busy, loud. A woman's yelling at a boy who dropped the bucket again. while another is bargaining over 2 onions and a handful of mint. You wait your turn like everyone else. Well, like everyone who isn't rich enough to have a servant do this sort of thing. You lower the bucket. It splashes, and you haul it back up. You expect crisp alpine freshness. What you get is alive, a little green, a little chunky, probably shared by frogs last night. Still, it's better than the stream, which winds past the tannery. The same tannery that dumps all its leftovers, fur scraps, lime water, rotten hides, straight into the current. And yes, people still wash their clothes there. Sometimes upstream, often not. Rainwater sounds good in theory, but storage barrels are rare and sometimes double as trash bins, laundry basins, or, if you're unlucky, communal baths for local pigeons. So now, standing there with a questionable pail of slime soup, you start to get it. Water was precious, so precious, entire villages were built around it. Entire wars started over it. Clean water wasn't a right, it was a prize. And it wasn't just about drinking. Every task, cooking, brewing, washing, gardening, even baptizing your newborn needed water. If the well dried up, that wasn't inconvenient. That was catastrophic. In fact, some medieval towns hired water carriers, official workers who hauled water from source to home. They had routes, routines, and often preferred customers. And no, you're not on the preferred list. You're lucky if they don't splash you while passing. You try to strain the water through your sleeve. Great idea, except now both your sleeve and your bucket are equally suspicious. You consider boiling it, but firewood is expensive, and your flint skills are well. Let's just say no one's asking you to light the village festival bonfire. Here's a strange twist. Some historians believe that dirty water was considered stronger, as in spiritually stronger. It had character. It had substance. Water that was too clear. People thought it lacked vitality. Imagine Thatcher's dream of Evian purity, laughed at by a 14th century peasant for being too empty. So now, you've got a pail of dubious origin, a stained shirt, and nowhere clean to sit. You pick a patch of dirt, squat down, and begin washing, slowly, awkwardly, praying no one walks by and recognizes the face of someone trying to scrub out an olive oil stain with moss. And here comes the kicker. Even bad water was used. A lot, because it was all there was. People developed stomachs of steel died trying. And when it came to laundry, good enough was the gold standard. If it looked cleaner than before and didn't catch fire in sunlight, success. You wring out the shirt, interstamp, slightly grey, smells like wet fabric and historical humility. You hold it up to the sky and ask no one in particular, how did we survive this? The answer, we didn't all make it. And those who did, they had very low standards for what counted as clean. Asterisk, you stare down at your soaked, sad-looking shirt, now resting over a rock like it's given up on life. It's damp, it's wrinkled, and somehow, it smells worse than when you started. You think, okay, maybe I just need some soap. Oh sweet. Modern you. Soap in the Middle Ages was not a cheerful bar with lavender swirls and the promise of hydrating aloe. It was closer to a caustic science project, one that could either clean your clothes or take off a layer of skin. You start asking around, where can I get soap? A washerwoman eyes you and smirks. Got lard, got ashes, got a cauldron. You do not. Turns out, soap was mostly homemade. It wasn't pretty, the basic recipe. Mix animal fat, often beef or pork, tallow with lye, which they made by pouring water through wood ashes. After hours of boiling and stirring, you'd get a soft greyish sludge that smelled like a barn and could probably dissolve your sins. In fact, this was more than just cleaning material, it was alchemy. If the mix was too weak, it did nothing. If it was too strong, it destroyed your fabric. And heaven help you if you used it on your face. Let's just say exfoliation wasn't the goal. You rub a corner of your shirt with a chunk someone generously handed you. It smears like cold bacon grease. You scrub, nothing happens. You scrub harder, the smell gets worse. Is that sheep, the soap you're holding is likely full of unfiltered ingredients, goat fat, fireplace residue, and maybe the hopes and dreams of someone who gave up halfway through the recipe. You wonder how anything got clean in this world. Spoiler, it often didn't. Here's a weird twist: soap wasn't always used for laundry. In many regions, especially early medieval ones, it was considered a luxury good, reserved for special occasions or personal grooming gift. You were rich enough to afford grooming at all. Most common folk relied on soapwort, a flowering plant that lathers naturally when crushed and mixed with water. It's gentle, effective, and widely used by people who didn't want their fingers to melt off. The catch: you had to know where it grew. And no, it's not sold at the old herbalist in a cute basket labeled organic. You consider heading to the woods to forage for some. Then you remember you once got lost in your own apartment lobby. Never mind, academic side note. There's still debate among historians about how widely soap was actually used. Some argue it was a niche product, regional and rare. Others claim soap production was a full-fledged trade, with entire families in Marseille or Castile making their fortunes from it. What everyone agrees on: if you had good soap, you were someone. And if you made it smell nice, maybe with herbs, lard, perfumed with rosemary or thyme, you weren't just clean, you were fancy. And if you had no soap, you got creative. Clay, sand, ash, salt, even old urine. Yes, we're going to talk about that soon. Sorry. Back at your rock, your shirt looks different, not clean, not dirty, just historically accurate. You sigh, rinse it in your bucket of not-so-fresh water, and drape it over a tree branch. It flops there like a medieval flag of surrender. As you stare into the middle distance, someone walks by, sniffs the air, and says, smells like lye, soap, and despair. You've arrived. Asterisk, you've dried your shirt. Sort of. It's stiff, unevenly crumpled, and now smells faintly of smoke, goat, and ambition. But it's not enough. Deep in your 21st century soul, there's a voice screaming, scrub it again. Really clean it this time. Too bad you don't have a washing machine, because you are the washing machine. You look around for help. There's no laundromat, no spin cycle, no magic delicate setting. There's just your shirt, your hands, and maybe a rock shaped roughly, like frustration. Laundry in the Middle Ages was powered entirely by the human body. Your fingers, wrists, knees, and occasionally your feet. Scrubbing wasn't a task, it was a sport. If you weren't sweating, crying, or questioning your will to live, you weren't doing it right. You carry your bundle down to the river, joining a group of washerwomen already knee-deep in the current. They've got wooden paddles, worn down, knuckles, and expressions that say they've seen things like mysterious stains and royal underwear. One woman is rhythmically slapping a pair of hose against a rock. THWACK. Another is wringing a tunic so tightly you're afraid it's going to combust. You kneel beside them. They nod at you, silently judging your form. You dunk your shirt into the water. The cold bites your fingers. You slap it against a rock. It makes a sad sound, like a towel giving up. You slap again, louder. Someone raises an eyebrow, mildly impressed. Medieval. Laundry wasn't just about scrubbing. It was about breaking the dirt's spirit. You weren't coaxing it out. You were fighting it, with a stick, a stone, or your bare fists. And if you didn't win, you just wore the stain with pride. Asterisk here's a strange little fact. Some places used feet washing, where people literally stomped clothes in tubs like grapes. You picture yourself doing that, slipping, falling, and knocking over the entire wash basin. You decide to stick with scrubbing. But it's not just physical, it's a process. First, soak the linen, then soap it, then scrub it, then rinse it in. Clean water, or at least cleaner than before water. Then beat it dry, then hang it in the sun to bleach. If the sun cooperates, if birds don't poop on it. You watch the others. They move like dancers, experienced, methodical, efficient. One flips a sleeve over her paddle and smacks it so precisely, it sounds like applause. Another sings while wringing a shift with muscles that could bend iron. You try to mimic them. Your shirt slaps against the rock, flops in the water, and nearly floats downstream. You chase it, trip, and land in a puddle. The women laugh, not unkindly. One of them pats your back. It takes time, duck. Back in your world, washing clothes is a background task. Here, it's your day job. And no, there's no laundry basket, waiting to carry it all home. You sling the wet, dripping mass over your shoulder like a squishy cape. Your shirt may not be clean in a modern sense, but you've earned every fiber of that mild freshness. You've soaked, you've scrubbed, you've stomped. You are the spin cycle now. Academics still debate how often people truly wash their clothes. Some say it was less than we think. Others argue it was more common among women's networks than records show. But one thing's certain, when laundry did happen, it was intense. You look down at your raw pink hands and your proudly damp shirt. It smells like river, soap, and effort. And for now, that's good enough. Asterisk, the next time you attempt laundry, you decide to skip the river. It's cold, crowded, and you're still haunted by the time your shirt floated off like it was trying to escape the century. This time, someone points you toward the public washhouse, a kind of communal laundry hub at the edge of town. You approach the low stone building, and immediately you hear it. The unmistakable rhythm of laundry day. Splash, slap, squelch, and over it all talking, laughter, shouting, occasional gasps. You step inside. The air is warm and steamy, scented with wet linen, herbs, and the undeniable hint of social chaos. Women line the wash basins like soldiers at attention, except instead of swords. They wield paddles, brushes, and wooden scrapers. Their arms move automatically. Their mouths, however, are on fire. Did you hear what the cooper's wife did at the midsummer feast? They say the miller's apprentice is sleeping in the stable again and not alone. And Lady Beatrice, pregnant. Again, that'll make 6. Or 7, depending who you ask. You haven't even reached the soap table before you learn who's cheating, who's expecting, who's pretending not to be either, and which priest was spotted at the tavern after dark. Again, welcome to the Facebook of the 14th century, the public washhouse. It's not just a laundry facility. It's a social engine. Here, women gather not only to clean, but to communicate. to exchange stories, news, recipes, rumors, and sometimes threats. If a shirt disappears or a stain mysteriously spreads, there's a good chance someone in this room knows why. You try to focus on your own shirt, slap, scrub, twist, but your ears can't help it. The conversation is delicious. You learn more in 15 minutes than the town crier shouts in a week. You also realize that some people come here with clothes that don't even need washing. They're just here to stay in the loop, and the hierarchy is real. The oldest washerwoman sits near the warmest tub and doesn't lift a finger. She commands respect like a general and judges every sock that passes through her line of sight. You nod to her. She squints at your damp tunic and says, "Too much ash, not enough elbow." The shame is immediate and earned. Here's the historical twist. In many towns, public washhouses were funded by the church or local guilds considered essential infrastructure, like roads or mills. In France, they were called levoirs and often had elaborate stone basins, drainage systems, and even roofs to shield washerwomen from rain. But they weren't just practical. They were political. Gossip here shaped opinions, reputations, even marriages. Some scholars argue that women's voice often, absent in official records, were loudest in places like this. There were also rules. Some towns regulated who could wash, when certain days were reserved for noble households, others for commoners. Some washhouses even had talking curfews when gossip was discouraged. Though based on today's volume, no one obeyed. You catch yourself laughing at a scandal involving a missing nightgown and a goat. Someone hands you a better soap mixture. Another adjusts your wringing technique. Before long, you're not an outsider. You're one of them, for the first time. Laundry feels less like punishment and more like belonging. Your shirt may still be a little dingy, but your spirit, positively sparkling. Asterisk, you step outside the washhouse, feeling mildly accomplished, thoroughly soggy. Your shirt is slightly cleaner, your fingers slightly prunier, and your gossip knowledge dangerously advanced. But just as you think you've gotten the hang of this whole medieval laundry business, you learn the next great truth of the era. Linen is not just fabric, it's status. You walk through the village square, shirt drying unevenly in the breeze, and you begin to notice things. A woman in a crisp, near-white coif immaculate. A man with the faint shimmer of freshly washed sleeves clearly trying to impress someone. A child in a shirt that's stiff, brownish, and holding itself up, clearly no washhouse visit this season. And you, somewhere in between. But eyes still linger. Not because they can smell you from 2 cobblestones away, but because in the middle, ages, your clothes told your story loudly. Wearing dirty linen wasn't just uncomfortable, it was a social signal, and people noticed. While it was normal to delay washing clothes until absolutely necessary, letting your linens get too far gone could be read as laziness, poverty, or even moral failure. After all, a good Christian kept house and body clean, or tried to, and if you looked too disheveled, people didn't assume you were tired. They assumed you were trouble. There's even a recorded insult from the period that basically translates to, "She wouldn't know clean sheets if an angel brought them." Ouch. You pause by a fountain, trying to smooth the wrinkles out of your shirt. You catch sight of yourself in the water's reflection. Wet, slightly grey, slightly stretched, and slightly defeated. It's okay. It's better than yesterday. That's what counts. But the townspeople, they notice the difference. A merchant nods as you pass. A child sniffs the air but doesn't gag. You're on the rise. Here's something fascinating. In many regions, people were legally obligated to maintain presentable linen in certain settings, especially in church. There are documented fines for showing up to Mass in clothes deemed too filthy. And not just among the nobility Comonios, clean linen was associated with piety, honor, and discipline. Dirty clothes could imply sin, or worse, a decent, but clean. Linen didn't always mean clean skin. Many people, particularly the upper class, believed that wearing fresh linen absorbed impurities from the body. So they'd change undershirts often, but bathe rarely. Why wash your skin when your shirt could do it for you? You also learn that nobles sometimes traveled with trunks full of spare shirts, not because they needed them, but to show off. A different shirt for every day was the medieval version of Instagram flexing. Meanwhile, for the poor, a single good shirt could be the most valuable thing they owned. It might be passed down, patched a dozen times, and reserved for feast days or funerals. And if you stained it badly enough, people might literally blame your character. Scholars still debate how much weight clothing really carried in everyday life. Some argue the poor were too busy surviving to care. Others say clothing was the language of survival. If you couldn't speak Latin or own land, your shirt said everything you couldn't. Back in the square, you cross paths with the town tailor. He raises an eyebrow at your semi-washed appearance, then gives a small, approving nod. Progress. Your shirt flaps a little in the wind, still damp, still wrinkled, but you know now it's more than a garment. It's your badge, your armor, your LinkedIn profile, medieval edition. So you stand up, straighter, adjust your belt, and march into the next day, stained, maybe, but respected. Asterisk, you've been obsessing over your shirt for days, now washing it, airing it, defending it like it's your only child, which, in a way, it kind of is. But just when you think you've mastered medieval hygiene, something shifts. A thought creeps in. A dark, dangerous thought. Wait, if this is just the outer layer, what's going on underneath? You glance around. Nobody's looking. You discreetly pull at your collar. Yup, it's damp, still faintly musty. You pinch the fabric underneath your belt line. It's sticky, warm, suspicious. You pull your hand back like you've touched something. Cursed time to talk about the real battlefield of medieval laundry, underwear.org. More accurately, the bare minimum of clothing separating you from total chaos. You're now asking yourself the question no one wants the answer to. Did they even wear it? Short answer, sort of. The medieval world didn't have Victoria's Secret, or boxer briefs, or breathable cotton layers in ocean mist blue. What they did have was a humble, baggy linen item called the brise for men and a long undersmock or shift for women. These were the first line of defense against sweat, grime, and whatever else life threw at your body. They were worn directly against the skin under all other garments, and they were rarely washed. Wait, what? That's right. While outer clothes like tunics and dresses were occasionally scrubbed, undergarments were often overlooked. Why? Because they were constantly in use. People didn't have drawers full of extras, and removing them meant going without a terrifying prospect in a world where breezes didn't come with modesty filters. But it gets worse, because these underlayers were expected to absorb everything. Sweat, oil, the occasional flea, some even doubled as sleepwear. You could go weeks, months, even without a proper wash. Just a quick rinse, maybe, on Sundays. If the moon was right, and the river hadn't frozen over, some wealthier folks might own 2 shifts, maybe even 3 if they were living really wild. But for most people, one underlayer, worn until it was stiff enough to walk itself to church. And don't think you can hide from this reality. Remember the social rulebook. If someone got close enough, they could smell your priorities. A whiff of 3-day-old shift. Understandable. 10 days. Scandalous. And if your linen started to go yellow or brown from body oils, oh dear, that was a reputation ruiner. Scholars have long debated how people actually felt about this. Some say medieval folks were just nose-blind and focused on survival. Others argue that personal cleanliness, especially beneath the visible layers, was more valued than we think, and they simply lacked the means to manage it better. You, meanwhile, have started to shuffle a little as you walk. Things are sticking. It's not great. You remember someone at the washhouse saying, "Clean shirt, clean soul." You're starting to think your soul needs a cold plunge. You wander back to the stream and consider what it would take to wash your shift. Privacy, none. Shame, all of it, but you do it anyway. Slowly, carefully, like you're performing a sacred ritual. As the fabric soaks and softens, you breathe out. The water darkens a bit. You don't ask why. You just keep scrubbing, and maybe apologizing quietly your own skin. When it's done, you wring it out and hold it up. It's single quotes, up. Better not perfect, but less offensive. You drape it on a bush. Drape yourself in a spare outer layer and sit. Just sit. For the first time in days, you feel cleanish from the inside out, and that's progress. Asterisk, you're lounging near your drying underthings, congratulating yourself for surviving the medieval underlayer ordeal, when a sharp voice cuts through the air. You there? Not near the sacred spring. You freeze. Is she talking to you? Yes. Yes, she is. You were just rinsing a sock. Just a little sock. But apparently, you violated a deeply serious medieval rule. Because, surprise, laundry isn't just a chore. It's a legal minefield. The woman approaches, wielding a look that could slice wool. She gestures at a carved wooden sign that reads something like "washing prohibited past the 5th stone." You weren't counting stones. You were trying to remove a mysterious green patch from your hem. Too late back in your own time. Laundry crimes mean accidentally dyeing your whites pink. Here, it could mean fines, public shaming, or, in some cases, being banned from the washhouse for a week, which, honestly, is both a punishment and a blessing. You apologize, profusely. She softens slightly and explains the situation in this town. As in many across medieval Europe, laundry was regulated, not just socially, but legally. Rivers, wells, springs, these were vital to survival. Drinking water had to stay clean. And if someone caught you sudsing up too close to the main source, you could be accused of contaminating the commons. That's a big deal, in fact. Some towns had entire bylaws about laundry. Wash upstream, never downstream. Don't use soap near sacred wells. Only use the public washhouse on your allotted day. Don't wring out clothes onto roads where runoff could mix with horse contributions. Break those rules, and you might be hauled before a local tribunal. And yes, those existed for laundry-related crimes. In Paris during the 13th century, washwomen had to follow strict guidelines about where and when they could wash clients' clothes, especially noble linens. The medieval logic was simple: clean clothes, dirty water, dead neighbors. Some historians suggest that these laws were less about hygiene and more about control, a way for towns to enforce order. protect resources, and of course, collect fines. Others argue it was the beginnings of public sanitation awareness. Either way, laundry could get you in trouble. You learn about the laundress's oath in certain cities where official washerwomen swore not to steal garments, not to damage them, and not to swap out a noble's fine linen for their cousin's peasant-grade cloth. Breaking that oath could result in losing your washing rights or worse, public scolding by the town bellman. Yes, the bellman. Picture a man with a hat and a scroll, shouting, "Behold, Marjorie the washerwoman has wrung out Lady Annis's tunic on a public fence. Shame." You're starting to realize that laundry in this era wasn't a private, domestic activity. It was a public act, a regulated behavior, a community concern. Everyone saw your stains. Everyone had opinions. And if you washed in the wrong spot, at the wrong hour, with the wrong ingredients, the whole town would know. Back at the washhouse, someone pats your shoulder. "Don't worry," she says. "We've all broken a rule our first week." You smile. She hands you a stick of chalky soap and whispers, "Use this instead. Less foam, fewer accusations." You take it like it's contraband. Your shirt still drying. Your shift slightly improved. Your record questionable at fixable. You walk back carefully, counting every stone along the stream. 5 stones, 6, 7. This time you know the law. This time you wash like a model citizen. Asterisk, your shirt is dry. Stiff again, of course, but dry. You hold it up to the sunlight and squint. Is it cleaner? Yes. Is it white? Oh no, 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 no. It's somewhere between forgotten parchment and last week's soup cloth. The stains are lighter, sure, but your dream of crisp, heavenly linen remains a medieval fantasy. So you ask the obvious question: how did they bleach things back then? The answer comes fast and, unfortunately, pea-based. You hear it first. From a washwoman scrubbing nearby, sunlight's free, urine's cheap. Wait, come again. Welcome to the world of medieval bleaching, where the sun is your spotlight, and urine is your secret weapon. Before you flee, hear this. Aged urine, or chamber lye, was a common cleaning agent. Rich in ammonia, it was powerful stuff, good for lifting grease, softening fabric, and, yes, helping brighten linen. Entire households collected it in pots. It was sometimes sold by the bucket. You stare at your shirt, then back at your own bladder. No, you're not there yet, but plenty of people were, especially professional laundresses, who knew that strong fabrics needed strong solutions. They'd soak garments in diluted urine, then lay them across bleaching fields, open meadows where the sun could work its quiet magic. The grass cushioned. The fabric, the air helped deodorize. The sunlight, slow and patient, lifted the color a shade or two. Eventually, you walk by one of these fields now. Its oddly serene rows of white and off-white garments fluttering in the breeze like surrendered flags. It almost looks beautiful until the smell catches up to you. Sunlight alone wasn't always enough. Some households used lye, the same corrosive stuff in early soap, or clay, or even milk bleaving. These would purify fabric and remove discoloration. Whether they worked or just made your shirt smell like oatmeal is still debated by historians. You decide to give the sun a chance. You rinse your shirt in clean water, just water this time, and lay it gently on a flat stone, angled perfectly toward the afternoon sun. Then you wait, and wait, and wait some more. Turns out, Medieval bleaching wasn't a one-day job. It could take days, even weeks, of repeated washing and drying to achieve anything close to what we now call white, and even then, it wasn't the blinding, sterile white of modern laundry detergent commercials. It was more like a neutral, oat dot. Of course, if you were truly wealthy, you didn't bleach anything yourself. You paid someone else to do it. Bleachers were a real profession, especially in large cities. Some even used secret plant-based concoctions to brighten cloth. Their services weren't cheap, but the result was status you could wear. Still, the academic debate remains: did people really care if their linen was white? Some say yes, it symbolized purity, faith, and cleanliness. Others argue that off-white was just the default, and only the nobility stressed over shades of beige. You just want your shirt to stop looking like a map of oil spills. After a full afternoon, the sun does its best. Your shirt feels lighter. Looks not white, but maybe light bread crust. You call that a win. You fold it carefully. No bleach, no burns, no boiling lye. And most importantly, no questionable bodily fluids. You walk home holding it proudly, like a knight returning from battle. You haven't conquered color, but you've made peace with it. Asterisk, you fold your shirt neatly and pause. There's still a mark on the sleeve, faint, brownish, shaped a little like a thumbprint and a lot like regret. You scrubbed it, sun-bleached it. You even briefly considered trying the emulsionative ammonia method, but it's still there. And here's the strange thing: you kind of like it, because in the Middle Ages, stains weren't just embarrassing, they were telling. A blot of wine might say I had a good time at the feast. A grease smudge could whisper, I'm a working man, thank you very much. A mysterious green streak, possibly cabbage, possibly witchcraft. Back then, your clothes didn't just look lived in, they recorded your life like a scroll on fabric. There was no fast fashion, no tossing out a shirt because of a spill. Every item was valuable. Every mark had a backstory. And so, as you wear your now mostly clean but not quite shirt through town, people read you. They read the frayed elbow, maybe, from a fall in the woods. They read the uneven dye. Maybe it once belonged to someone wealthier. They see the faint black ring on your collar and think, chimney sweep, new apprentice, had a bad stew night. In fact, some professions had such consistent grime that their clothing became a kind of uniform. The baker's flour, the smith's soot, the fishmonger's eternal, pungent perfume. A spotless tunic in those jobs. Suspicious. Maybe you weren't working hard enough. Even children's clothing told stories. Patches from last summer's growth spurt. That ink blob from their first try at Latin letters. That inexplicable purple streak no one wants to talk about. You glance down again at your sleeve. That stain, it's from when you dropped your bread into the fire, then used your shirt to fish it out. You remember it now, how everyone laughed, how it still tasted fine. The stain doesn't bother you anymore. It's part of the memory. Some scholars argue that this relationship with stains was practical, not poetic. People didn't have the time or resources to remove every blemish. Others suggest that it reflected a deeper cultural value, proof of labor, proof of experience. A dirty tunic wasn't shameful, it was honest. Of course, not all stains were treated equally. A noble's garment with a wine splash, a cute anecdote, a servant's apron with the same grounds for punishment. Class mattered. Perception mattered. More, You hear a woman in the market whispering about a laundress who returned a nobleman's tunic with a faint red blotch on the cuff. Berry juice, the laundress said. Blood, the housemaid claimed. The tunic was sent back. The laundress was questioned. Nothing came of it but her reputation. Stained. You start to realize that even medieval laundry had politics, so when a child trips and smears jam on your tunic's hem, you don't flinch. You smile. Someone nearby chuckles. Ah, a stain of sweetness, they say. You nod, because now you understand. Every blotch, every spot, every faded patch is a story, woven in silence. You wear yours proudly, asterisk by now. You've lost track of how many days you've worn this shirt. You've scrubbed it, dried it, reworn it, sighed over it, and nearly sacrificed it to the laundry gods. But here's the thing, it's still going. And more importantly, you've started to get creative. Because in medieval life, clothing wasn't just used, it was reused, repurposed, and reimagined. You wake up, look at your shirt, and think, not today. Not in the "I refuse to wear this" way, but in the "let's try a new method" kind of way. You don't have a closet. You don't have options. What you have is strategy. So you begin mastering the rotational rewear system, aka inside out. Monday backwards, Tuesday lettertranastic, Wednesday coverithicate, Thursday isthotably clothin Friday, because, let's face it, your one shirt is everything. It's your sleepwear, your workwear, your formal wear if you brush off enough crumbs. And this isn't laziness, it's medieval efficiency. People in the Middle Ages didn't expect daily changes. Having 2 shirts was considered lucky, more than 3, wealthy. Clothes were expensive, materials were hard to get, fabric was labor-intensive, and tailoring was a skilled trade. That meant reuse wasn't a choice, it was survival, and with reuse came hacks. You learn to hang your shirt near smoke to cover smells. You sprinkle it with herbs, lavender if you're fancy, rosemary if you're practical, whatever the apothecary dropped if you're desperate. Some even rubbed their linen with chalk or flour to absorb impurities. Doesn't clean it, but hey, optics. You see others doing the same. A young merchant wears the same tunic for days in a row but changes the belt each time. A washerwoman pins her collar differently and suddenly it looks new. A monk turns his robes inside out and no one bats an eye. Even aristocrats reused. They just had people to restitch, retrim, or re-dye garments to hide the fact. Some gowns were taken apart and remade when styles shifted. Reuse wasn't a shame, it was a fashion cycle. You start getting compliments. Is that a new tunic? Someone asks. You nod mysteriously. It's not a lie. It's just Thursday's configuration of Tuesday's shirt. Here's a fun fact. Inventories of medieval estates show clothes being passed down like heirlooms. A good shirt might survive 3 generations. A cloak might be mended 50 times. A noble's will could include specific instructions. My blue gown to cousin Matilda, my linen undershirt to the steward. Your shirt, it's not just a daily companion now. It's a character in your story. It's weathered mud, judgment, lie burns, gossip, and at least one accidental encounter with a goat. And if it rips, you'll mend it. If it fades, you'll wear it with more dignity than dye. Because now you know, clean is relative, new is a matter of attitude, and reuse. Reuse is medieval brilliance. Asterisk, it starts with a knock. Then a voice clear, confident, maybe a little bossy. You got linens. I got time. First wash is half price if you don't hover. You open the door to see her. A laundress apron cinched, sleeves rolled, expression sharp as vinegar. And just like that, your shirt's fate leaves your hands and enters the kingdom of professional laundry. Yes, professional in the medieval world. Washing clothes wasn't just a chore for peasants and housewives. It was a business. And the women who ran that business, they were legends. She snatches the shirt from your hands before you can explain the berry stain, the weird texture, or the suspicious scorch mark. Seen worse, she says. Once pulled a dead frog out of a bishop's car sack. That shirt. A vacation? You believe her. Historically, laundresses, also known as washerwomen, blanchesses, or lavandiers, were a cornerstone of urban life. They served homes, taverns, monasteries, even the military. Wherever people needed clothes cleaned and didn't want to do it themselves. A laundress was nearby, bucket in hand, gossip on lips, arms like marble statues. But here's the twist. They weren't just laborers, they were information hubs. Your laundress starts scrubbing. You sit down, trying not to interfere. She starts talking. Not to you, rheologist, into the soap-scented air. Lady Margaret hasn't sent her linens in 2 weeks. That means something's up. The baker's apprentice came in smelling like perfume. His wife doesn't wear perfume. I had to starch the priest's collar 3 times. Nervous about something. It's like listening to a living town archive. Scholars often overlooked these women in written records, but oral history. That was their empire. A laundress could tell the rise and fall of reputations just by what people dropped in her laundry basket, lipstick on collars, suspicious timing of bloodstains, names stitched hastily over older names, all noted, all remembered. You realize something else. You're not her only client. A row of drying garments flaps in the wind, like a medieval neighborhood bulletin board. Noble silk, wool leggings, a mysterious piece of clothing that might be a glove or a hat. No one's quite sure. And here's the academic kicker. Many laundresses operated with semi-formal contracts. They had price lists, regular customers, some even had assistants. In cities like Paris or London, whole guilds of washerwomen formed informal economies. Some charged more for starching or bleaching. Others offered pickup and delivery. Medieval Uber, but for your underpants. Of course, it wasn't all glamour and scented water. They worked in cold rivers, hauling heavy wet linen, often without gloves. Winter laundry could mean frostbitten hands. Summer heat meant boiling water in cauldrons until steam choked the air. Injuries were common. So were losses over damaged garments, missing items, or mysterious substitutions. Your laundress eyes you now. You trying to bleach this thing or bless it. You shrug. Honestly, at this point, I'll take either. She laughs a big, warm sound and beats the shirt against the tub one last time. It's cleaner, not glowing, not pristine, but dignified. She holds it up with a critical eye. Not bad. If it gets any holier, we'll sell it as a relic. You pay her in coin, a little bread, and a whispered thank you that feels oddly emotional, because you get it now. She didn't just wash your shirt. She rescued it, and in a world where cleanliness is a battle, the laundress is your sword and shield, or at least your detergent and paddle. You think you've finally got it down. The soap, the schedule, the gossip circuit. You even know where not to wash unless you want the town elder to curse your entire bloodline. But then the bell rings. Not a church bell, not a laundry paddle. Hitting a tub. This one's deeper, slower, heavy. It tolls once, then again. You don't need anyone to say the word. You feel it, plague, Suddenly laundry isn't about freshness or social standing anymore. It's about survival. People start burning linens, not washing burning. The air smells less like soap, more like fear. You watch from your cottage window as someone dumps a pile of bedding into a pit and sets it alight. A monk nearby reads prayers, through a scarf wrapped around his face. It doesn't help. Nothing does. The Black Death, sweating sickness, fevers of unknown origin. No one knew what exactly caused them, but clothes. Clothes were suspicious, especially ones worn by the sick. In fact, clothes became evidence. A nobleman falls ill, and his chambermaid immediately burns his nightshirt. No time for washing. A child coughs once, and their bedding is dragged into the street. Your neighbor sends her husband's cloak to the laundress and tells her, flatly, burn it if you have to. I won't ask. You clutch your shirt instinctively, as if it can protect you. But in this moment, it's not a comfort. It's a liability. Historical records from plague years mention entire cartloads of clothing destroyed, especially from hospitals or monasteries. In Venice, strict laws were written. No laundry from plague houses may be washed in public fountains. In London, washerwomen were forbidden from accepting garments from infected homes on penalty of imprisonment. The logic was both simple and flawed. People knew something was contagious. They just didn't know what. But bodies were burned. So, wear shirts. You step outside. The street is quiet. The washing fields are empty. No gossip today, only wind. And yet, there were those who still washed. Brave or desperate, it's hard to say. Some believed that vinegar rinses, herb boils, or airing linen in smoke could cleanse away death. A few laundresses made a living specifically handling plague laundry, often cast out to do so on the town's edge. You hear stories whispered through half-open shutters. She washed the doctor's coat twice. She boiled a bishop's cassock. It came out fine. He didn't. She wore gloves of leather and soaked everything in sage and wine. They call her the smoke washer. No one knows if she's still alive. Your own shirt is safer now. But you think about its journey. Sweat, scrubbing, social scorn, the law, even bleach. And now, this. The final test. You wash it one more time. Not because it smells, not because it's stained, because it matters. Because in a world where life is short and uncertain, the act of cleaning something becomes a kind of hope, a defiance, a prayer in cotton. You lay it out in the sun. You light a candle beside it. You whisper something that isn't quite a blessing, but close enough. And, as the bell tolls again, your shirt flutters in the wind. Not perfect, not new, but clean, and, for now, alive. Asterisk, the sun is low now, casting long amber shadows across the field. Your shirt, once soaked, scrubbed, scalded, and sun-dried, rests quietly beside you. It no longer demands attention. It just exists soft, warm, still carrying the scent of smoke, rosemary, and maybe a little story. You stretch your arms, feeling the stiffness ease from your shoulders. Your hands are raw but steady. There's a kind of peace in the silence. Now no bells, no shouting, no stains left to name around you. Laundry flutters, gently like flags in a windless war. No more scrubbing today. No more judgment. Just you, the evening, and the quiet hum of fabric telling no one what it's seen. You lie back on the grass, eyes heavy, body wrapped in the one shirt that's been with you through it all. You made it, you lived it, and somewhere between soap and survival, you understood it. You close your eyes, not because you're tired, but because, for once, there's nothing else to do. The linen crinkles beneath your breath, the wind softens, the world fades to hushed sleep. Now, your shirt will still be here in the morning, and so will you,